Hello and welcome to Full Disclosure, a podcast project conceived entirely to let me spend more time than I'd ever get on the radio with interesting people. And I'm always wary. I don't want to turn into sort of Len Goodman on Strictly Come Dancing and say you're my favourite. But Robin Askwith, I've been looking forward to this one a lot.
That's what Michael Sheen said when I worked with him.
An awful lot.
Oh, bless you. Well, there you go.
Thank you.
It'll only dip downhill now.
Well, I mean, not least because the career spans such an extraordinary period of time and array of work. I first met you because you star in my favourite film, or you appear in my favourite film of all time, which is If, by Lindsay Anderson, which was your first acting job.
Correct.
You remain, according to Wikipedia, best known for your portrayal of Timothy Lee in the Confessions film series. But I feel, and I'm sure you agree, that to associate you too much with that would be quite unfair, given the full canon of work that you've done.
Yes, I mean it's the 50th anniversary.
It's insane, isn't it?
74. So I'm sort of it's been pushed down my throat at the moment, like the Blu-ray box sets.
Yes.
And there's a documentary coming out in a couple of weeks called Saucy, which I partake in and. But it was 12 weeks of my career.
Exactly
you're right.
that. Exactly that.
And a very strange, which I'm sure we'll get onto, and a very strange time.
We will get onto it, but we will begin at the beginning, which is in Southport, I think.
Yes.
In Lancashire.
Yes.
Where you were born to your dad Nelson, who was an accountant,
yes,
ex-Navy, and your mum, who'd been in the Wrens. How defining an experience of your childhood was contracting polio? I mean, does that colour all of your memories? Is that the big?
Well, go straight in, James.
I'm not going to hang around, mate. You know that.
Straight in with disability.
Yes.
They told you downstairs. I asked to use the lift, obviously.
No, they didn't. They didn't know that. I didn't know it because I've never seen anything in your work that portrayed it. But I know that spending 9 months. My dad had TB as a young man. I know that spending 9 months in isolation can have quite a big effect on a young mind.
It's obviously. To answer your question, is my first memory. And they say your first memories are trauma. And it's certainly my first memory being herded into the back of an ambulance. And I just remember red blankets.
Wow.
And the doors closing. And the next thing I knew, my head was hanging out of a metal box, which was an iron lung.
Yeah.
And that... Because you're 3 or 4, or however, my brother died, by the way. He caught it at the same time. He died. So my mother had 2 children one day, and the next day didn't have any. So I know, different times,
isn't it?
And so yes, that is unfortunately my first memory. But I was very, very lucky. And when you think about like we have virus issues now, when you think about, they had no idea how you caught it, how contagious it was. I mean, who are these nurses that used to come in and look after me? I mean, fantastic. Also, and I think you were brought up a Catholic. I was very high Anglican, and so priests would come in. These guys are risking their life to look after you, while I was busy throwing food around. After I came out of the iron lung, I think it was about 3 months in an iron lung.
It's almost impossible to conceive of for somebody.
But I mean, at that age, you think, well, this is obviously what life is. It's what everybody goes through. I didn't get it when I was 10, or like Roosevelt get it when I was 30,
sure,
or Arthur C. Clarke, or somebody later in life. So it's I suppose it's a bit like somebody being blind very quickly. They don't really remember seeing anything. So, but I was one of the lucky ones, and it did impact on my life, and it did. I never really spoke about it until recently, because. You went to a public school, and you know what it's like. They see any weakness in someone, you're finished. So I was lucky because my mother took me to Southport slipper baths, the Victoria baths, which were seawater baths, and somehow I started moving again when I came out of the hospital. But I was very, very lucky. Oh, and Ian Drury wasn't so lucky. You know, he was left far more impaired than I was. So I was determined as soon as I got into school not to be, because then I sort of realised something was wrong. You know, I couldn't put this foot properly on the ground.
Right.
And I thought, this is not wrong. And my grandfather, in very different times, would laugh at me going up and down the stairs. You know, well, that wouldn't happen today. No. He'd say, there he is, spring heel Jack.
Oh, Lord.
I know, oh, Lord. But actually, it made me think, I don't want to be spring heel Jack.
Yes.
And I love sport. And so I got involved, and like you, I was very privileged. I went to some great schools.
And you got stuck in. And already the amateur psychologist in me sees number one, that lust for life.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'd missed large chunks of it at a really important age.
Yeah, and I suppose so, yeah.
And number two, that determination to get stuck in as much as you could and as quickly as you could.
I didn't want it to be noticed, James.
Okay.
I didn't want to. For instance, when I was playing, I played cricket to quite a high standard. And also because of my slight gait, I could swing a ball a mile, you know, because it was coming in, something was not quite right with the legs, and people couldn't work it. Even my cricket master, who was a guy called...
So you had a unique action.
I had a unique action, which Ian Botham, much later in life, would take the mickey out something dreadful. But even in that sort of era, in the 90s with Botham, 80s and 90s, I never let on I'd had polio. It was much later in life.
That you felt comfortable talking about it, or
I had to.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
I for people who don't know you on Twitter, we've heard already about encounters with Michael Sheen and Ian Botham. Your life is absurd in many ways, but one of the beauties of your Twitter account is the diaries that you've always kept. Because I mean, you've got it all there, haven't you? There's sort of
meet Jimi Hendrix.
Yes, exactly. There's just these mad appointments. It's Tuesday, so
play cricket with David Gower, but it's there.
I know. I think it's magnificent. How long a shadow did the loss of your brother cast over your childhood then?
It was denied. Like
it was never talked. It was never
stiff
upper lip.
It was stiff upper lip. Never talked about.
It's tough, isn't it?
And I think I've underestimated what my mother went through. To be honest,
of course.
You know.
Yeah.
But there's a terrific Inside Number 9 episode called, I think it's
something else you've appeared in.
Yes, with no clothes on. Random Act of Kindness it's called, and it's about a son being sort of not very nice to his mother. Right. And I don't think I quite understood until my girlfriend, who is a primary school teacher and deals obviously with and she deals with special needs as well. Yes. It's pointed out this is what your mother went through. Wow. So I don't think and I was very feisty because, as you say, I thought I'm so lucky I can walk, and I was a very, very fast swimmer, and so I used to compete. I competed for the Southern Counties.
You were an exceptional schoolboy sportsman, really.
Yeah,
I mean, and driven perhaps more than the average schoolboy
definitely
to prove that you weren't damaged.
Definitely. The one thing I couldn't do was cross-country. I did cross-country running, but I couldn't be very successful in it, but for obvious reasons. But I could play squash. I could run short periods of time, you know, very quickly.
So why do you say you didn't want to be noticed? Because I
didn't want the polio to be noticed.
You didn't want that to be noticed?
No.
Because there's not a lot about you that didn't
to be
noticed.
James, what are you saying here? I am a natural-born show-off.
And did that emerge quite quickly? Did that appear quite early
I was
on?
the joker in the class.
Okay.
You know, if you were Ampleforth, weren't you?
Yes.
I was at Merchant Taylor's, and I was expected. People would wait for my comment, and it got me into so much trouble. And I couldn't. It's like it's a devil inside you that you know says, "Go on, say it." Go and say it. And I'm afraid it exists to this day. And I've upset more actors, more writers, more, you know, even Sally Lindsay, who I work with now, says, don't. But in a way, I think she's saying, go on.
Yeah, a little bit of both. So, I love that. It's, I don't know what it is. It's just the absence of self-censorship. Is it sort of...
Well, yeah. And the people I've admired are the people, you know, like I have no Stuart Lee and people like that. Those are the people that sort of go one step further, and they're just you think, no, don't say that, don't. And Stuart's face sort of goes. Yeah. And he's going to say it.
I've
and
gone
you think,
there.
Yes.
Yeah, I do, yes. In fact, Sally and Stuart have both been in that chair before you, which is quite nice. There's a symmetry to that. You mentioned Merchant Taylor, so you've come south now from Southport. You've moved.
Well, what happened, there's a story why we went south, because short of a red cross being put on the door, we were known as the family that had polio. And it was a very middle-class family. Yeah. 22 Dunkirk Road, Birkdale, Southport, and it was a sort of lovely area. My grandparents, he worked for Royal Liverpool Insurance, but we were not daubed. The door wasn't daubed with a red cross, but we were certainly considered unclean.
Wow.
And not treated very well. And I always remember there was a girl opposite as well who must have had, I suppose, cerebral palsy, but in those days they were called spastics, weren't they?
Yes.
So, and I remember she was run out of town, and she was a lovely girl, and she had a dog, and I used to, and she was terribly nice, but she was, known as the spastic.
Oh dear.
So, and this is all going on in Birkdale, and I was known as the polio victim, and I could still be spreading it. That was the point.
I was about to say there's a fear of an utterly unfounded fear of contagion. So that actually prompted a geographical complete relocation.
A complete relocation to Eastcote, Middlesex.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long way.
It is a long way, but it was. My father, as you say, was a chartered accountant. My great uncle was Rob Wilton, the comedian who was obviously from Liverpool, and he'd moved down with my grandfather, Mark Askwith, who was also an accountant, to Hendon. So my mother was from Southport. And we moved to Eastcote, Middlesex, and I went to Orley Farm School in preparation to go to Harrow.
Gosh!
But it was realised pretty early on that I was not going to fit into Harrow.
Well, you were probably bright enough, but
I was bright enough,
but not engaged enough.
They just thought I would struggle.
Yeah.
Because
with the regimented nature. You boarded though at Merchant Taylor's, or did you?
Yes, yeah, and at Orley Farm. I was at Orley Farm with Anthony Horowitz. Who every time I tweet, you're talking about my Twitter account, and I'm very naughty every now and then. If Orley Farm comes up, I'll tweet in, and he'll come back with, another session at the therapist, because he was really bullied.
He's spoken to me about that. This is already, what are we, 10 minutes in? I think this is already the full disclosure that has referenced more previous full disclosure guests than any other full disclosure, which kind of proves to the point I was making about your diaries.
But listen,
yes.
You caused me a lot of, talking about name mentions. This is a completely wasted podcast, really. It's just a silly chat. But
they all are.
But listen how this is so funny. If you know the cast assembled, you contacted me to say a few kind words about Barbara Windsor.
Yeah.
Do you remember
I do,
when she passed away?
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, okay, I'll come on. I was in Gozo and we arranged the phone link up and stuff. And Michael Cumming, who, as you know, is Stuart's producer and produced everything, Brass Eye, everything, Toast, and he's listening on the radio to you, but he only hears, and I'll have as a guest Robin Askwith, and he hasn't got past that, where you would say who would be now
talking about Barbara Windsor.
He missed that.
Right.
He's gone straight on to Stuart Lee, who's driving down the M1. Robin's coming on. I'm going to email him now to plug King Rocker.
Oh no!
a film, as you know, that I did for Stuart and Michael.
Yeah.
So Michael sent me this email, which mercifully I'd not seen.
Sorry to get you to shoehorn in a reference to your latest project.
So I don't know anything about that. I'm talking to you, and I've got nothing planned at all.
Yeah.
We now cut to Stuart driving down the motorway, and then you introduce me. I come on, I talk about Barbara, and then I say, if you remember, I I was talking to Stuart Lee the other day, and he said, you know why you're a legend? We were having lunch somewhere, and he said, I said, well, legend's a funny term, Stuart. He said, no, I'll tell you why. It's because I had lunch with Julian Cope the other day.
Wow.
And Julian Cope said to me that a real legend, Stu, is when you've been very famous, the parabola, down you go, and then you rise and come to the top again. That's a legend. And then I said to you, and that's really
that's
what
exactly right, yes.
Barbara Windsor.
Yes.
And Stuart then messaged Michael. I said, this is crazy. I'm just driving down the M1. I've heard my name, Julian Cope, Barbara Windsor, Robin Askwith in 30 seconds.
Just glorious.
So we
love it. No, I love it. Stuart sends me notes sometimes when he thinks the show could be improved a little.
Yeah, he does that to me as well.
So we'll hop into merchant tailors, because prep school is preparation for public school, really, in so many ways. You clearly enjoyed winding teachers up. Do you think they liked you? Were you one of the ones that some teachers quite liked your cheek?
Well, do you know?
Or not?
Yes, there were. I mean, there would, as you know, mind you, you're sort of generation later. I mean, it was quite a violent place.
Yeah.
And which is mostly why you like IF so much.
Yes.
Because it doesn't.
Well, I was in the last gasp of the violence.
Well,
I'm 22 years younger than you, and my prep school, we still got beaten. Not by other
where
boys.
Did you go?
I went to a prep school called Winterfeld in Worcestershire, which you won't know.
I don't.
But it was very old school, and the headmaster used to beat us properly and very formally with the hands out and the cues.
Oh yeah, we were beaten to death at prep school, which is what Anthony Horowitz will tell you about.
So you get to big school.
I get to big school, but you're interesting talking about the masters, because you're right. There were some that just didn't like Robin Askwith. You know, that was Peter Taylor. Actually, was one of my teachers, the journalist, and they didn't like Robin Askwith, and I was discouraged to do. I was obviously into drama, and I was kept out of drama groups, which made me even more. I won a poetry reading prize, and was never given the prize.
Right.
You know, it was really nasty stuff. And
they're trying to break you.
And then
remold you in the image of
correct.
Which little soldiers of empire.
Which made me wilder, especially the 60s. Don't forget. I mean, you had 80s, the 60s. We were the first generation that were not going to fight a war. The national service had gone out. So we were not going to have... So we thought, what are we going to do? Music came in, Beatles, the Rolling Stones, sex.
Yes.
You know, all these things suddenly happened. And we were that generation. But I was at a public school being suppressed.
Yeah.
So I joined a band. I was a drummer. And I was despised for that. I was
within the establishment of the school.
Yeah,
despised for not towing the line.
Not towing the line.
And
I was called in, and I was obviously beaten by the headmaster, who I'd like to talk about, because he's a very interesting chap called Brian Rees. And if you read his obituary in the Sunday Times, it's rather bizarre. He says the one thing he regrets was expelling Robin Askwith.
Really?
I'm in his obituary.
That's extraordinary.
And he was.
What were you expelled for?
Well, you were expelled for smoking dope, weren't you?
How dare you?
No, it's in Wikipedia.
It is, yeah, you're right.
So, well, whatever. I was expelled for...
It's such a funny interview. Is it? Yeah, it's lovely.
We'll get on to Tolstoy later.
Forget it. There's quite a lot of common ground here, isn't there?
Well, there is.
It's a difference. Go on.
There is. You see, I've kept the letter to my parents, who were furious I was expelled, because obviously it was very expensive school, and it wasn't clear what I'd... Now, I'd done things...
I see, so it was an accumulation.
I'd done things which are on record, like there was the guy that owned Massey Ferguson or Crane Freuhauf, one of those crane companies, and on a Sunday, there were cranes building something in the background, and we paid this crane driver a tenner or something, to lift the headmaster's Morris 1100 and put it on top of the chapel. Now, apparently, the headmaster's come out in the morning, seen the Morris 1100 on the chapel, and went, Askwith. Now, that is, it's very much how our judiciary is run now, actually, isn't it? So there was no proof whatsoever. It was me, but so in other words, there'd been little things. I'd emptied the school library. I'd robbed in a post office as a sort of school prank. But But then he eventually, rather like you, he expelled me for smoking cigarettes.
So that was the reason that was given, the official reason that was given.
But years later,
yeah,
I'm at doing The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui
yes.
at Warwick University. He's now the headmaster of rugby.
Okay.
And Brian Rees, and it's all a matter of record. This, and he comes to see me do Arturo Ui, and which I absolutely love doing. And obviously, Roger Michel directed it, and he got absolutely legless with me and started smoking cigarettes.
How funny!
This is weird. Then he came out. Then he said, "I'm actually gay.
Good Lord,
and I love you."
What?
I know.
Okay.
And I thought, "Oh my God!" And he said, and he dropped to his knees in this restaurant and he said, "I'm begging forgiveness." And I always remember red teeth from the red wine, cigarette ash. And, it was just the humiliation he was putting himself through. And, what sort of transformation had he gone through to be a married headmaster of Merchant Taylors, then rugby. And there was a huge scandal. And if you, Google his name, about him being gay in a time when you weren't allowed to be gay, and he lost his job as headmaster of rugby, and he became a scullion at the Royal Garden Hotel.
Wow,
an extraordinary story. And I met up with him every now and then, just to have a chat. He was a fascinating man.
So his life up until coming out was a model of repression. It was the textbook. Yeah. Repression, and you represented someone who was clearly not ever going to be repressed, and so that tension is quite dynamic, isn't it?
Well, it is dynamic. Well, obviously, he sort of. This sounds really weird. He sort of revered what I was doing. Yeah, because I thought I'll beat the hell out of you. I don't. Or was it sexual? I don't know what it was. And Martin Rowson, who's your era, the Guardian cartoonist. Yeah. He's more than a cartoonist, isn't he? Of course. But he is, I think, 10 years younger than me. He had the same headmaster, and he said my name was, it was like legend.
So you haunted him in a way.
It would be daubed on walls every now and then.
Fantastic.
I know.
When did you realise you were good looking then, Robin?
Oh, that's a strange thing to say.
Well, it is, but it isn't, because you did modelling as quite a young...
Yeah, I did modelling.
So that's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? No one ever asked me to be a model.
Well, I don't know. There was no... first of all, I've got the dodgy leg.
Right.
So that's my...
But most people aren't going to really be conscious of that. It doesn't change how conscious you are of it, does it?
I suppose it sounds arrogant, but I suppose women were available from very early on, and I was not the sort of typical alpha male. I'm not, as I'm often portrayed, as somebody that goes, "Whoa, isn't I?" I don't think I've ever said "whoa" in any film ever.
No.
In fact, the success of those films we mentioned earlier was the fact that I was more the sort of beta, and Tony Booth was the alpha.
Yeah.
So I would, there was slight arrogance. So God, what a funny question! I've never been asked that. I suppose...
Well, it's an obvious question to ask because of everything that's come before in this interview, including your headmaster falling in love with you.
Yeah, but I never thought of myself as that good looking or anything.
Right. But you must have made a few quid as well doing the baked beans adverts, Fairy Liquid adverts. This is...
Yes, no, I did.
So, but not acting. I mean, sort of acting.
It is sort of acting, and you're in front of a camera and you're stringing words together, and you're looking around. And
would you have framed that as an ambition then, if sort of before Lindsay Anderson came to see the school play, came to see Richard III? Would you have thought of acting as a career?
Oh yes.
So you knew what you wanted to.
Oh no.
So then keeping you out of the drama groups was even more.
It was because obviously my parents were spending a lot of money. They didn't want me to be an actor.
I've still got those letters. It's wasting your money. My dad
wasting your money. Yeah.
Wasting his time and wasting your money.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It was obviously a printout.
Yes, that's absolutely, yes. But you knew that's what you wanted to do. You felt...
Well, and I'll tell you why I knew is because where we lived in Eastcote, my next door neighbour was my friend was called Christopher Thornburn, and his father was a guy called Lou Thornburn, who was at the time the studio manager of Pinewood.
Oh wow!
So as an 11-year-old, we were shown round
Magic.
Pinewood, would you like to go? And we were like giggling little schoolboys in our Orley Farm outfits because we had to wear the school uniform. So was shown around. But he said, we're going to take you on a closed set now. So you're not even supposed to be here. Stand in the corner. Of course, we were like, I was going to say like little school children. We were little school children. Standing in the corner. And there was Dirk Bogarde and James Fox doing The Servant. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So I knew from that moment. And here's the weird thing. 10 years later, and this is, you couldn't make this up, I was standing there with Sid James flipping burgers in Bless His House.
In the same studio.
In the same spot.
How magical. Why? Why did you know that's what you wanted to do? What happened in that moment?
I don't know, there's a magic of walking onto a studio.
Right.
I must say, I didn't quite know I was going to be an actor, although I thought I wanted to be a stage actor.
Yes.
But I was just fascinated with the cameras, all the people ferreting around. You know, what do they do? The carpenters, the electricians, the gaffers, the riggers. You know, I would at that age I just looked at it all and thought, this is fantastic.
I want to be part of this.
I want to be part of this, not realising that I'd be quite a big part of it.
So then it's an extraordinary moment of serendipity then when Lindsay Anderson, a visionary film director, turns up at your school play and sees you giving your Edward IV.
Richard III. It might have come over as Edward IV. No, that's. But somebody's put that.
I've got that the wrong way around. No. So you were playing the title role.
I was playing.
You were playing Richard III. And Lindsay Anderson was in the audience.
Well, yes, because my nose fell off because I was a huge Laurence Olivier fan.
So you wanted a prosthetic.
I wanted a prosthetic, which very much like Peter Sellers in one of his films sort of came off. It came off at the end, and I turned to the audience and went, a nose, my kingdom for a nose.
It's genius.
And but I was told I would never be in a school
because
play
the director doesn't want you doing that. You're breaking the fourth wall, aren't you?
Breaking the fourth wall.
All of that malarkey. So, but Lindsay Anderson saw that. How come? Did he have a kid in the school? No, of course he didn't.
No, they were. I don't know why he was there. It was through. He knew who Martin Rowson knows. Okay. It was his English teacher, who's called Dick Steen.
Yes.
Who looked like Mr. Pickwick and was called Mr. Pickwick. It was called Pickwick. And it was through him. It hadn't particularly come to see me. But the thing about Lindsay, as you know, is he will find the best out of everything. When I was doing on a big nadir of my life was doing pantomime with Ian Botham in Bath. I say that, but I enjoyed myself with Ian a great deal. But career-wise, it wasn't. From seeing Dirk Bogarde in Pinewood, I'm now with Ian Botham
in Bath,
batting bread rolls into the audience. And Lindsay Anderson, I was horrified. Came backstage. I said, Lindsay, Jesus, what he said, no. Purebrecht, he said.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it made me feel so much better.
Gosh, he was a huge influence on you, wasn't he?
Huge.
For the duration, really, of
all of it, to his dying day.
For the rest of his life.
Yeah, for his dying. He was coming out to Gozo, actually, where I live, just before he died.
Gosh.
And he phoned me to say, I can't come. He had to go in for some more tests. I said, what is it? He said, well, all my tests are clear. And the doctor said, you're absolutely fine. And in true Lindsay timing, he went, ominous.
Oh, Lord. And it was.
And he was dead a few days later.
Gee, so you came in for an audition. Were you excited? Were you did you think this is a life-changing moment or anything like that? Did you allow yourself to dream?
First of all, I got it slightly confused because it was a public. They were also casting Goodbye Mr. Chips with Peter O'Toole.
Okay.
And I got it confused. I thought it was Goodbye Mr. Chips.
Right.
Which upset everyone.
Yes.
Not Lindsay though. Lindsay found it rather charming that I was coming in for the wrong film.
Yes.
I was a bit disappointed.
Oh no, I haven't heard of it.
It was called The Crusaders.
It was, wasn't it? Well, the book was called, or the play, was it? But was
no,
it based
it was nothing.
On? Was it an original script?
It was written by
called
John.
The Crusaders.
It was an original script by David Sherwin and John Howlett.
And it had a false start, I think, hadn't it? Before this, it just came cold, did it? It was the first time.
No, they couldn't get it going.
Okay, but
and
it was the same project.
Lindsay got hold of it and turned it into what it became.
What happened at the audition? And I've got to be careful here. I've got to keep an eye on the time because I can't spend 15 minutes talking about my favourite film.
Oh, yeah, you can.
No, I can't because we've got. You're still only about 15. We've barely.
Well,
that's very true. We've got the box set. The box set is on the way. But what happened at the audition? What was the audition like?
Well, they didn't know what age. But they didn't know what age they were casting the senior boys, the middle boys, and the junior boys. They didn't, and so originally I was going to be, and I hoped I was going to be cast as one of the protagonists. I'm really glad, by the way, I didn't.
Okay.
But because what I had was an 8-week workshop with one of the finest directors in the world. I didn't realise that. They cast older. Mark McDowell was older than me. Richard Warwick was older than me. David Wood was a lot older.
Yeah.
And there was me and other actors. Were placed sort of in the same year in the school,
including Charles Sturridge, actually,
including Charles Sturridge,
Brideshead, and others.
But he insisted we were called every day, Lindsay.
Okay.
So we were always there. We're using the background in the thing, a couple of lines here, a couple of lines there. But it was invaluable because what I was doing at that time all those years ago at Pinewood was I was thinking, Clapper Boy,
And were you still drinking it all in? You didn't. Just
every
day, every
moment.
week, you're drinking it.
What's
all
he doing with
in.
the tape measure?
But you'd never had this before in your life because you'd get bored in other contexts, or you'd get distracted, or you'd be too busy trying to make everybody laugh. But here you were.
Yes, I couldn't misbehave.
That's interesting.
And when years later I tried to misbehave with Lindsay, like on Britannia Hospital.
Yes.
It's one of the greatest put down lines ever, and it sums me up completely, was on Britannia Hospital, where I had a substantially much bigger part, and was thoroughly enjoying myself. And I foolishly said one day, "Oh, Linz," in front of everyone, "I've got a great idea." And there was a pause. Well, you can guess what's coming. And he went, "Robin, can I just stop you there?" I said, "Yeah, of course." He said, "When you say that," I said, "Yes. Do you know how my heart sinks?" And it's the greatest note. I told that to Michael Sheen, actually.
Not bad.
And we then had to go into a scene, and he couldn't cope.
So, final question: was there any notion that Keating was going to be a character that would return in other stories, other films, in Britannia Hospital?
No.
No. Completely organic.
Well, no one knew if it was going to be successful.
That's true. The 11th most popular British film of all time. According to a very recent definitive survey.
And nearly didn't come out. It was something to do with Rosemary's Baby, wasn't it? The deal was they had to put If out as well. And I remember the premiere at Paramount Cinema. So Keating was going nowhere. He did try to get me in No Lucky Man, but I wasn't available. And then I was doing some dreadful play in Australia that I wrote. It was really bad, but it was making lots of money. And he phoned me up and told me about Britannia Hospital. I said, "Well, I'm going to continue this play." So he said, "Robin," he said, "are you going to shop at Woolworths or Harrods?"
Oh, well.
And I said, "Right, buff." And I've cancelled the rest of the tour and went and did Britannia Hospital.
So what happened immediately after If? Because your role wasn't big enough for you to, presumably your phone wasn't ringing off the hook, or was it? Did it change? Changed everything for you?
Well, the first thing I did was a Hollywood film, a musical called Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates, playing Hans Brinker, playing the main part. So I was skating, singing on ice.
So you went like that, the trajectory just went off like a rocket ship.
That was a coincidence.
Okay.
But there's a scene at the end of If where we're in a chapel and it's burning, and they're burning it down before the roof.
Sure.
Yeah, and the crocodile comes up and all the bits from underneath the stage, and what's his name, Anthony, who plays the general, Major, is making the speech, and the whole place is burning down, and he there's a few close-ups. It was very good with me with close-ups.
Yeah.
Miroslav Ondrejek the DOP would say, "No, we don't need this. We don't need this." And Lindsay said, "No, we do need this." He used my face a lot to do that.
Yes, no,
just
there
do
is.
that.
Yeah.
To do this, and I said,
"You're almost like punctuation marks in the film, aren't you?"
Exactly. Yeah. And I said, "What?" So in that scene, he said, "I want you to do the look you do." I had no idea what he was talking about. I said, "What look?" And he went, "That." And years later, I said, "Can you attach a word to that look?" And he said, "Disdain."
That's nice.
Now that look, a filmmaker called Pete Walker was casting a film called Oh Carol, which turned out to be Call It Carol, and he was looking for a protagonist to play the main part. And that close-up got me that part.
Wow.
He said, Pete Walker, I said, because I expected to read the audition. He said, you don't have to do anything. The part is yours. And it's because of that look. And then I had an association with people like Pete Walker. Then I was just handed around.
So it's 1970 when Call It Carol comes out. So and how ambitious were you at this point? If you'd had a little to-do list of things that you wanted to achieve, what would have been on it?
Well, at that age.
Yeah.
Well, I was doing it.
That was it then.
I was doing
carry
it.
on, please.
Yeah, carry on, please. I was very, very happy, and it was an age without social media. It was an age without going back to the showing off thing. My friends were Richard O'Sullivan, George Layton, Robert Powell, Dennis Waterman. Richard Beckinsale wasn't really part of that club, but he was obviously as successful.
And going up for similar parts and same parts sometimes.
But we'd walk down the street, no one would know who we were.
Really?
There was no social, nobody was that impressed by fame. So we wanted to work. We wanted to work in television. We wanted to work mainly in television and films, and theatre as well. When it came along, we were all doing exactly what we wanted, and we were having a ball. It was a good time. But I had an agent who was brilliant because I'd come back from Hollywood, and before I had time to get big-headed, I was doing 2 lines in Please Sir.
Right. Yes.
She said, you've got to keep working.
Yes.
You've got to create contact.
You came back, though, didn't you, in Please Sir?
Yeah, no, I came back and
Eddie.
played. Yeah. I did a few more. Then I was in Father Dear Father, and then Blessed His House, and then I formed a relationship with Sid James, and so when they were casting the son of the film, he didn't want the other guy.
So you came in and did the film of Bless This House. So if we're looking for kind of milestones, like big deals, the film of Bless This House was quite a bit, or are we now just talking about a nice trajectory?
Nice trajectory.
Lots of work. Bless This House is more remembered now than some of the other stuff that you did, but at the time it felt like part of the same process.
Part of Bless This House is more celebrated now than it was then. I put that on Twitter a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, Sally Lindsay's is her favourite film.
Yeah.
Her house. I won't say where the house is because that's a bit. It's a bit like Steve Pemberton the other day admitting he lived in Crouch End. He said, "Oh no, what have I done? On a podcast, what have I done?" Her house is she bought because it looks like the house in Bless This House.
That's lovely.
How sad is that?
Well, I don't think it's sad at all. So you're just a very happy camper then, really, at this point, and life is ticking along nicely. I love the line, whether it's true or not, I love the idea of Barbara Windsor talking about the way you're rolling, carry on girls kept improving.
That is true.
But she said here that Askwith, his part's getting bigger and bigger by the second.
Yeah, with expletive involved.
Matron, oh good.
You've noticed I've kept away from expletives.
Yeah, well, you don't need to, but we get so, and then we come to 74. And the thing about full disclosure is that I'm more interested in the bits of my guests' lives that the people listening won't know so much about, and so we'll talk about what it was like. I'll start by saying that you have said that if you had your time again, you would turn down the Confessions series because you'd be very interested to see what would have happened to your career if you hadn't done it.
Sounds far too intelligent for me to say that.
Don't be silly. So for people who don't know, the first film was extraordinarily successful and rather good. And in your opinion, the next 2 or 3 were extraordinarily successful and not that good. But it was incredibly horny films. I mean, they were certificate 18s, and they were sort of borderline pornography for some people. And that, as a young man, now I know you a bit, I can see how you'd just run into it with fantastic, this will be great. But what you wouldn't have known was that it would follow you around then for the next 10 years of your life. Really.
No, it was just, because I had this agent who was pushing me up for everything, and it was originally an independent film. It wasn't a Columbia film at all, and I was sent this script, and I'd done a few saucy films. I'd done a Horror Hospital.
Yeah.
Call It Carol was not. I wouldn't say it was a much better film than it was sold as. Any case, and I'd done a 3D sex film, 4 Dimensions of Green. I was taking all sorts of work. It was fantastic. But when that script came along, I thought, enough of this.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down that route. And I couldn't, it was a pretty awful script, the original Window Cleaner script, got to be honest. And I couldn't see the point of all this shagging. And it didn't.
But it didn't have any dramatic purpose.
No, and the narrative wasn't what it eventually became, which was, it was placed on the middle class.
It was a class comedy.
Well, Lindsay sort of pointed that out to me.
Did he?
And told me how successful I was in Poland. And he said, "Oh, you're a working class hero there." I said, "Oh, really?" Yes, because you got a middle class girl. Yeah. I don't. But there wasn't so much of that in the original script, and there certainly wasn't much comedy. And then they had real problems casting the part because they wanted somebody that obviously could act, but also get the kit off and run around. Waterman had turned it down. O'Sullivan had turned it down. Beckinsale had turned it down. Nicky Henson, he turned it down. And I turned it down. And then it became, my agent phoned me. And I always remember we went to Very's restaurant. And I had scampi Newburg. And she said that, "Robin, I think you're going to have to rethink this film. It's now a Columbia film. It's a 6-picture deal. And only Roger Moore has a 6-picture deal or something. Some such thing."
Yeah.
I said, "I don't care." So I went to see them again. And, well, the rest is history. I eventually got talked into it. And I was given quite a lot of a rope to hang myself with, really, with the business. I mean, even little bits of business, like when I'm meeting John Le Mesurier and I've got the lager in my hand and I go, "Nice to meet you," and the lager spills over the top. There was huge arguments about that. About you can't do that, and I thought, well, you've got it, and they used it, of course. Yeah. So I've became not cocky, but I realised I could now stick more stuff in. But in answer to the question of the success of it, I was in a series called Beryl's Lot at the time for Yorkshire Television, which was very successful, playing a sort of short-haired North Country lad. Mark Kingston, Carmen Sherry, Barbara Mitchell, fantastic cast, very successful. And I was very happy doing that. And then suddenly, I remember the cast saying, "Jesus, this film you've made, it's huge." I said, "No, it's not. Yeah. No, it's not. I'm just a window cleaner that runs around, a bit of shagging." They said, "Robin, I don't think you know how successful you are." I said, "No." And I really was quite upset because then Yorkshire Television wrote me out of Beryl's Lot,
right?
Because they didn't want me to be, didn't want to be associated with me.
Oh gosh, that must have hurt.
It did.
So you've got this mad contradiction going on. You're on the side of buses. You're on billboards.
Yeah.
I think the most successful film of 1974 was it?
Yeah,
You've got the number one.
It was number one box office for 10 weeks,
and at the same time.
De Niro, none of them
didn't come close.
Didn't come close.
But at the same time, you're already thinking, this is a bit of a poisoned chalice.
Can I swear once?
Yeah, of course.
Because it is
it's important. It's contextually important.
It's contextually important, and it explains how things were.
Yeah.
I was seeing not my girlfriend at the time, but my friend Linda Hayden, the actress, gone to see in Coventry at the Belgrade. Where she was appearing with Paul Jones. And my car broke down on Shepherd's Bush Green, and there was the Odeon, and it had Robin Askwith in Confessions of a Window Cleaner with a queue wrapped round the block, and even had a sort of ladder with a sort of rubber version of me. It's hanging there, right? Now, my car's broken down, and I lived in Richmond at the time, and I thought, "Oh, Jesus Christ, I can't bloody minis." And flagged down a taxi, and the bloke pulled up and said, "Get in." And I said, "I haven't got any money on me." I said, "I've got some at home." He said, "I'm not taking you." I said, "Well, I've got loads of money at home where I live in Richmond." "I'm not taking you, mate. You could be anyone." And I went, "Oh, no." I said, "Look, that's me there." And he looked at me and went, "In your fucking dreams," and drove off. So that's how fame.
So there's a weird dichotomy then, isn't there? With did you like being when people did start recognising you a lot? Did you enjoy that?
It was different.
Why? How?
I don't know. It was different. Like now people are obsessed with it.
Yeah.
You know, even coming on the train today, you could see young people who now watch everything.
Yes.
And I am having this sort of strange renaissance at the moment. And so we're going, and you can see them going like this. And that's, it's not really didn't really interest me at all.
You just want to be admired by your peers, and you
I
want
wanted
the
to
approval of people like Lindsay Anderson.
And I wanted to enjoy that sort of work. I mean, nothing has given me greater pleasure in recent years than Mark Gatiss saying, well, you know what I'm going to say, when he got the Olivier Award, saying, who was your greatest influence? He said, Robin Askwith doing Arturo Ui. Nothing.
Did you cry?
Yeah.
Because I would have done if that was, yeah.
I mean, you think, Jesus Christ. There I was at Darlington Hippodrome.
Yeah.
And there was a 16-year-old. I mean, I would love that. I said to Steve Pemberton the other day, I said, I would love there to be a tag to that story, that he'd come to the stage door and said, could I have an autograph? And I told him to fuck off. I wish that, you know, that would have made it even better story.
But that is, and that I think more than anything else, if you had to distill into an anecdote, that sense of the path not taken, which I know you've wondered about, that there it is in a nutshell. You know, you could have given as a Hamlet, you could have given as a Lear, you could.
David Mercier, do you remember the writer David Mercier?
Yeah.
I lived in a flat in St John's Wood behind Abbey Road Studios, and there was a pub there called the Heroes of Alma, very, very famous, and everybody. That's how I got to know people like Nick Mason, and you know, you talk about my tweeting. I mean, I was there the day that Roy Harper was taken out of the studio. We were all smoking funny cigarettes. He was recording whatever he was recording, HQ, I think, or whatever it was. They got Roy out to sing "Have a Cigar." I was in the studio. You know, I was there.
Wow.
And David Mercier actually came down and bollocked me. He bollocked me. You know, I had people like that saying, "What the fuck are you doing? You've got to play Hamlet."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, well, I want to." And
it's not that easy.
And I love Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare at school, and I make it my business now to keep my brain active, to learn pieces of Shakespeare every now and then, just to keep my brain active. But yeah, I mean, I suppose there's a whole thing about Richard Burton feeling that he, on a different level, he feels like he sold out, didn't he? He was an extraordinary actor, but ended up as a sort of Elizabeth Taylor's husband.
Yeah, as a plus one.
As a plus
in
one.
some ways.
You know, brilliant. That's not what happened to me. But I am.
Well, you're on a course. You're on rails that you can't get off, in a way. Even if not the work is on rails, the perception of you, in a way, is defined by a very short. I mean, not now, but for that immediate aftermath by the mid to late 70s. You're getting written out of the show, and you're not going to be considered for roles that you would otherwise have been considered for.
But every now and then somebody would, like Roger Michelle, would come out the woodwork and give me Arturo Ui.
And show faith in you.
And Lindsay actually offered me some work. I was What the Butler saw, but I wasn't available for a lot of the stuff. My Uncle Rudman offered me a lot of work. The first Poliakov play, Clever Soldiers. There were people. I mean, Rudman said, the trouble with you, Robin, is you played one part too well. And, you know, it's a very English thing.
Yes, it is.
Jim Carrey can be extraordinarily over the top in Pet Detective and then can do something like The Truman Show.
And timing as well, again. I mean, the era you were in and the way that things worked to sort of all sort of conspire. So you've got extraordinary success and you've also got regrets. When did you start relaxing back into yourself? Because I presume when you're doing Arturo Ui, in the moment, you're as happy as you would have been doing anything else and you would have been anywhere. But when off stage or off set, did you start enjoying being Robin Askwith again? Or maybe you never stopped?
No, I think I've always enjoyed myself because I've had other interests like sailing and cricket and a lot of sporting friends, Queen's Park Rangers. I've had a lot of interest, but I have worked all the time.
This is. I mean, because when you say a low point, you're doing panto in Bath with Ian Botham. You never really are not working.
I always worked.
Yeah, that's rare.
No, I've always worked. Now I do the stand-up thing. It is, of course, it's invaluable that I had those times.
Yes, of course.
It's invaluable because
it's like a mine of anecdotes and stories.
Because I can go from Sooty to Pasolini in 2 seconds, and people love it.
And do you have favourites? So leaving behind the 70s and looking at the body of work in the next 44 years, do you have moments of particular joy, things that you particularly enjoyed doing?
Well, meaning happiness is retrospective.
Yeah.
Strange things. Strange things. Underrated things. I mean, for instance, something like Run for Your Wife in the West End. That was tough. It was a physical challenge the way I did it. It was a physical challenge for Ray Cooney to put up with me, but it was Tessa White, I think, in a woman's magazine, was asked the happiest time of her life, and she said working with Robin Askwith in Run for Your Wife, and I thought, oh, don't be stupid. And I thought about it. It was a really, really happy time because full audiences.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say quality.
Yeah.
It was far. You couldn't do it now. You couldn't do it now. It was farce at its absolute best. And I was working with the Bernard Breslaws, the Windsor Davises, Gareth Hunt, Tessa Wyatt, Linda Hayden, Prunella G, and they kept me in it for 15 months and just kept throwing casts at me. And they said, Robin, have you got the energy for another 3 months? I said, yeah. So
fast like that, it's like a finely tuned engine, isn't it? Where everything has to be absolutely perfect. Like inch perfect. I mean, dangerous on some stunts if it wasn't inch perfect. But that sounds like your element almost.
Yeah, it was. But I could do other stuff as well. Yeah. So, but that was I felt completely at one, and I was in the gym during the day, and I played a bit of cricket, and people would, there'd be David Gower hanging out of the box, and Bill Pertwee would come up to me and say, "Is that David Gower?" I said, "Yeah." Can I meet him?
Can I say hello?
Can I? No. And then a story against myself is I used to have champagne in the fridge, but different levels of champagne.
Depending on who knocks on the door. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, but they're great.
Go on.
Go on. No, I'm telling against myself.
No, I know you are. I know you are.
So, and my dresser, obviously, I'd have somebody and I'd say, middle grade. And pass around the champagne. In any case, one day, it's 86, and people are fawning in my dressing room at this accountant in the corner, who I knew, but the point of the story, I didn't recognise him because he was dressed like an accountant.
Yeah.
And I've gone cheap champagne. So the cheap champagne is going around, and someone came up to me and said, "Robin, how long have you known Nick Mason?" I've gone, the Dom Perignon.
top shelf.
I did a Basil Fawlty. I went, sorry, Nick. No, don't drink that. Here's the Dom. So they were fabulous times.
There's a bit of the rock star about you, isn't there? I know you nearly. I think the name you haven't mentioned yet, but I think Phil Collins being so good was part of the reason why you realised that was not.
And Pete Gabriel being so bad.
Yeah, because you could have.
Well, I took over. Pete Gabriel was a crap drummer,
right?
And so I was headhunted and became the drummer of what obviously became Genesis. But
just drop this in at the end. It's just a little casual, another little avenue that we didn't.
Well, yeah. Oh no, yeah. Well, David Quantick cannot believe this story. No. No. I replaced Pete Gabriel because he was fucking awful, and we're about 14 at the time, by the way. So and then and I was really quite a good drummer, and then there was this other bastard, Phil Collins, who was a better drummer than me, and for 14, so I don't know he's going to be Phil Collins.
Sure.
And then he replaced me in another band. Then Clapton came and saw me. He was looking for a drummer for something at Kingston on this barge that was quite a good gig. I was playing there, and he walked out apparently. Clapton, so just thought dreadful, and used Phil Collins. So Phil Collins then became Phil Collins, and then in a perverse twist of the story, he became played with Genesis, you know.
So all the little paths converging. When you used the word Renaissance earlier, when did this one begin?
It's a very good question. God, that is a good question. There's been key players in the Renaissance. First of all, Stuart Lee will hate me for saying this. He'll hate me for saying this. But he just said 2 words: keep going.
Gosh,
keep going. And that's a part of his legend theory.
Yeah,
just keep going. So I've always got that in my mind, and I suppose, and she'll hate me saying this, is Sally Lindsay. You know, her total belief in that I had to come back, had to work again, had to do stuff, and talking me into a role that was actually written for someone else. We're now, I'm not allowed to say it, but about to go into season 4. Don't mention it. No, I won't.
No, that's all right. No, because we'll both get into trouble.
No.
So we're talking now about the Madame Blanc Mysteries, which has been a beautiful sort of hit, hasn't it? For all of you involved. And one, I know this because Sally's been in that chair very recently. That it's not like a normal job for any of you, is it? It's. I think you'd all do it even if you didn't get paid.
Well, yeah. Now yes. I'm doing the Robert De Niro. You're good. You're good. You're good. Because you mentioned on Sally's podcast about my Twitter account.
Yeah.
We're all on boat. Now, my girlfriend said, "Will you stop tweeting yourself drunk on the back of boats because it just looks like you're having a party?" And we are working, I promise you, 6-day weeks.
There's a show to prove it, isn't there? There's an end product. There's an end product.
In the 40 degrees from, 6 o'clock I get picked up in the morning and get back knackered at 7 o'clock to learn the lines for the next day. Yes, the weekends are a bit of a blast. And we're rowing people in, and I can't tell you who some of the people are in season 4, which hasn't been announced yet. You know, more and more people now want to be attached to it.
Yeah.
But like everything, it's like Benidorm. I was in Benidorm and everybody thought that was great fun until they get there and they realise it's 40 degrees, long, long days. And Darren Litton, like Sally, is a hard taskmaster. You've got to know your lines. There's no mucking about. There's no time for mucking about these days on a set, as you most probably know. People that don't know their lines, it's just not acceptable anymore. So you have to go completely prepared. So that is why. Yeah, you're right. It is a great job. But going back to your question about the Renaissance, at the same time, I've got Stuart asking me to do the bit in King Rocker.
Yes.
I'm then working with Michael Sheen. I then was in Strike. And then the Invisible Hold On Tight, the Inside Number 9, which led to a real episode.
That was mad, wasn't it? That. I mean, but creatively, even I know every Inside Number 9 is a sort of work of staggering genius, but it's. Do
you want to know how that came about?
Yeah, I do.
I got a text from I know Steve Pemberton from Benidorm, and we're quite social, and I just get this text from him. He said, "This is not going to make much sense, but will you come to Manchester for a day to make an episode that's never going to be shown?" And do you know what? In my head, I thought, I know, yeah. I said, I know it. I know what it's the Robin. I know what you're doing there. And I went and we did this ridiculous whole day of stills, improvisation. He even created a Twitter account of somebody papping us filming. So the episode, then they cancelled the episode. And what he hadn't bargained for was this huge backlash of, we won Robin Askwith, we won the bus episode. And so then, I wrapped the whole series of Inside Number 9 out. And what they do, this is how clever they are. Not only did they bring me back to explain, as you saw it, explain what the bus episode should be, they've got me urinating, which is a nod to Canterbury Tales, Pasolini, and they've got me dropping my trousers, a nod to a lot of my other work. And they've put really clever stuff in there, like when when I say, and then Steve, who's the conductor, he says, "Come on, darling, I'll take you up the back passage." And Reese goes, "Anal," and I go, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that." That is so clever, because what they're saying is actually the 70s.
Yeah.
Was as you mentioned earlier, was sort of porn, but it wasn't.
No, it was entendre, and I mean some of the stuff that appeared on screen was close to the to the bone, but there was an end of Pier lightness to it all, that which is probably why it endures and why it remains so popular.
It won't go away.
No, that too.
It won't go.
That's another way. That's another way of looking at it.
Channel 5, VHS, DVD, and then I know.
So I'd usually end talking about ambition, and but you'd never, apart from just wanting to be in work, wanting to have quality work, wanting to have, and that's why I think you enjoy mentioning your associations, because you're talking about people you admire and respect, and the mutuality of that is obviously deeply satisfying to you. That I mean, you're never going to top the Mark Gatiss story. That is just
nearly Michael Sheen saying, I did this film a couple of years ago called Last Bus to Christmas. Was it called Last Train to Christmas? And it nearly comes close to it, is him saying, "Oh, I've so looked forward to working with you, Mr. Askwith."
Gorgeous, isn't
it's
it?
Pretty near to it.
Yes.
And spend a whole day corpsing with Michael Sheen, which that comes near to it.
So I don't know what the answer to the final question will be, and that is there anything else that you want to do? Is there anything? Is there a phone call tomorrow that would be?
Well, this is going to sound sort of slightly sycophantic, but just coming in and doing something like this today, which, as you know, I've flown back just for the day
I'm
to
incredibly
do.
touched.
No, because I'm now. For years, I turned down anything. Celebrity get me out of it.
Yeah.
Any reality television, you'll notice I do none of it.
Yeah.
I could have done Celebrity Big Brother or something. And
Sure.
let me tell you, I've walked past boats and thought I'd like to buy that boat.
Yeah, maybe.
And you go, I've not done anything like that. Now I seem to be accepted a lot more now. And I've got to be honest, I'm just going to wallow in it.
Well, you've earned it.
Well, thank you, but I'm going to wallow in it for a little while.
Robin Askwith, wallow away.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.